All right, good afternoon. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm Rod Cox. I'm with the Program Director at the Simon Center. And at the Simon Center, we help promote the study of interagency cooperation as part of the Command and General Staff College Foundation. So welcome to everybody that's here. On behalf of my partners in this endeavor, this InterAgency Brown-Bag Lecture Series, that's the Command and General Staff School, Colonel Doug Cardinelli, and Mr. Marv Nichols, we want to welcome you here to the fourth in this series of presentations. Now, hopefully today's presentation will be both enlightening and educational, as I suspect that especially those, my fellow folks that are here in uniform may think, hey, I've never even heard of this Federal Executive Board. So you're going to learn about it today, though. That's part of the purpose of this educational series. Now, you also, with that, might not know what it is. You might say, well, what do I care? If I do know something about it, I may think this is something like a Chamber of Commerce for the civilian agencies part of government. What's it have to do with our operational mission? Well, I would ask you to think of it in kind of three things. First is you might get an assignment straight out of here, or certainly later on in your career, where you're going to work outside the post with other agencies of the federal government. And for you to know that agencies like the Federal Executive Board exist at different places around the country will be very beneficial to you in understanding how you might leverage that organization to help accomplish your mission. Secondly, you may get a job where you go and you're focused on a major installation on an operational mission, but knowing that you don't deploy or execute your mission in a vacuum, also you'll need to do interagency cooperation and coordination. The FEB can help facilitate that as well as the quality of life for your soldiers, your service members, and their families at your installation can greatly be enhanced by cooperating with the FEB. And then thirdly, what I always try to bring it back to is the purpose of the Simon Center as taxpayers. It's kind of nice for us to know that there are organizations like the Federal Executive Board that exist whose mission is to enhance interagency cooperation and coordination at the local level for the federal agencies. Now, today's presentation is going to be recorded. So what that means is that when during the question and answer period, if you would please use one of the microphones in front of you to ask your questions, or if you engage in a dialogue so they can be picked up. The recordings will be posted not only at the Simon Center website, but they're largely being recorded for use for our fellow students, that 5,000 or so that are in the distance education system out around the world, as well as those that are at the satellite campuses around the country. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, the Executive Director of the Greater Kansas City Federal Executive Board, Mr. Larry Hisle. Mr. Hisle has led the Kansas City FEB since 2013, and he took that position after serving as a Senior Program Manager at the Office of Personnel Management. Mr. Hisle holds a Bachelor in Business Administration from Thomas Edison State University, and he's a very active community volunteer. Please welcome the FEB Executive Director, Mr. Larry Hisle.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy holidays to everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here. First of all, I have a couple of questions. Who all has heard of FEB in the past? Very good. So a couple of you. Second question is, what do you get when you take a pineapple, or excuse me, I've already blown it, an iPad and a pine tree? You get a pineapple. Yes, that's right. Okay, that's as low as it's going to get. So it only gets better from here. That's the good news. As Rod said, my name is Larry Hisle. I'm the Executive Director of the Federal Executive Board. The Federal Executive Board is, quick elevator speech, is basically like a Chamber of Commerce for federal agencies in the Kansas City area. Kansas City has over 150 federal agencies, all report directly to DC. So we're the ones that get them to communicate locally, and we're going to show you how we do that. But Kansas City being, we've been around for over 55 years as far as the Federal Executive Board network. We were started back during the Kennedy administration. It was discussed during the Eisenhower. It took a little bit of time to get into focus. But at that time, they were looking at how do we communicate with our federal agencies out in the field. Remember, back in that time, there was no email. When you picked up the phone, you had to dispatch to an operator with a five-digit phone number, and they would click you into that area. Everything was in triplicate. So it was kind of a heavy heavy operation to try to get the message out. So they put together a network of opportunities to get the message out to the rest of the 85% of the federal employee base that's out there among the field levels. So established by President Kennedy in 1961, it is overseen by the Office of Personnel Management. And we're located in 28 cities, mostly in regional cities, which Kansas City is one, as well as other areas that have high concentration of federal employment. So you kind of see up here all the different locations the FEB is located at. I'm very privileged to be here because I think the FEB very much mirrors what the Simon Center does with the interagency collaboration. That, in fact, is our goal, is to get agencies to work together and to basically, instead of everyone having those 150 different missions, to combine their talents and really try to get the mission of what we're doing for the federal for the taxpayers in motion. So you may come, when you leave here, you might go to another city, as Rod said, and you may find yourself involved with one of the FEBs in the future. Our board is made up of the senior most official of every federal agency in the Kansas City area. So Lieutenant General Lundy, we work closely with Kirby Brown here in the Leavenworth area. So I'm not the FEB, I'm just the staff person for the FEB. So my job is to work on their behalf and really administer those strategic plans they might have for the upcoming years. The membership is automatically reversed to that level, and the size varies over those 150, over the 28 FEBs as far as who might be included in that. Our chairperson, we have currently the chairperson today is the Beth Freeman, who's the regional administrator for FEMA. So that is chosen by the membership, and that chairperson will then work directly with 3 vice chairs, and underneath those vice chairs are our 3 lines of business. So as we said, there's 28 different federal executive boards. There's an old saying that once you've seen one FEB, you've seen one FEB, because we all do things a little bit differently, which is actually good. We have the same mission as far as to support our federal employees in emergency preparedness, security, employee safety, as well as workforce development and support, and then interagency collaboration and community outreach. But having it done a little bit differently in each area actually helps grow the network, because we can learn from each other with the best practices we go through there. The way we provide our mission, because we're just a 2-person staff with the FEB offices, we work with a lot of different committees that that will help, interagency committees that will help guide our way through, if it may be a COOP working group, alternative dispute resolution, diversity, Veterans Affairs, all those committees, and we'll talk a little bit about them through the next slides. But all those kind of help us guide the mission for the federal executives as we move on. Throughout the history of the FEB, we've been involved in a lot of things a lot of presidential initiatives and executive orders that have we've been able to progress those missions, going through the Civil Rights Act, the war on poverty, going through Homeland Security, the influx of Homeland Security, especially after the 9/11 attacks. So all those things we've helped to grow upon. And continuing on with ongoing things with encouraging more of a telework and encouraging the succession planning. Right now, 50% of all federal employees are eligible to retire within the next 5 years. So again, how do we properly plan for that new crop of federal employees coming in? We work closely with the Equal Employment Opportunity Network to make sure that we're giving a fair overview for federal employees and potential federal employees coming in. And we also work very closely with emergency preparedness. And we're going to cover those within our lines of business. So our purpose is really to strengthen the coordination of activities outside Washington, D.C. You can see to provide coordination across the agency departments and their management, and then work through their budgetary issues that they might also have. And to try to create a better value to the public by fostering communications. Again, you know, everyone has their own individual mission. We want to be there to help extend that mission. Our vision is to be the catalyst of better government. The FEBs, when it was designed, and we'll show you how that works, we were designed as a cost savings component for the government. In fact, the Kansas City FEB last year saved more than $3.6 million in cost savings. And that's through trainings that we put on, through interagency trainings or alternative dispute resolutions, that's programs we put on. But our values, we want to, again, make sure our member agencies are serviced. The quality is our reputation, federal employees, and our teamwork is our success. There's a few quotes. I won't read these off for you. But ultimately, over the course of the last 50 years, you see we effectively supported administrative initiatives, advanced communication, promoted community outreach. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that we do within those line of business. Our first line of business is emergency preparedness, security, and employee safety. I think that's probably our most important line of business, because if we don't take care of our employees, then we're not doing our job. That's our single richest resource. So Kansas City has been one of the innovators within the employee safety and preparedness over the years. We were the first group that actually first regional city that's opened up a closed points of dispensing. How many of you are familiar with the pod concept? Okay, one. What that is we worked with the collaboration with the Department of Health and Human Services and the Kansas City Health Department, and say that there was a anthrax spray over Chiefs Stadium during last week's game. And we have 80,000 people possibly infected by anthrax. Where do they go? So a portion of that population could be federal employees. So we have a program in place where we have 4 closed pods for federal employees in the Kansas City area. So if someone feels like they were infected, or if there's influenza breakout and they need to get medication for that, they can go to one of these closed pods. And at that point, they can get medication for themselves, their families. And the health department loves this, because in reality, it takes 160,000 people off their roster of who they have to take care of. So in Kansas City, we have 400 federal volunteers trained to work on these closed pod units. So we take care of our federal employees, then those volunteers are able to go out into the public and work on the other points of dispensing for the public. So it's a great way to really kind of move up the system for the overall public and make sure that we take care of our employees. Another first that we have been is the Kansas City Regional COOP Working Group. We were the first regional city to develop a regional exercise. So how many of you are familiar with the COOP process? Okay, so with COOP, what it is continuing operations. So if, say for example, a tornado comes through town and takes out the post office, well, the post office has 24 hours to stand up a new location. So every federal department, every federal building has to be able to stand up a new location within 24 hours. So that is what they call a COOP process, and within the COOP working group, we have a group of interagency participants that come together and work on best practices and actually help develop an exercise each year to help plan for that emergency. So we have actually the regional COOP manager of FEMA back in the back here, David Teska, that kind of helps us plan that, and we'll kind of show the exercise we did last year. But that is one thing that we're able to do. Each agency has to exercise their COOP plan on an annual basis also. So we develop that exercise so they can exercise that COOP plan to be able to be ready in the time of need. We're also the group under this that does emergency dismissal plans. So that is what we affectionately call our 3 a.m. club. So we have a group of 8 people that basically in the times of bad weather will get up at 3 a.m. to call the weather service, call the FAA, call the National Guard and the Kansas troopers to see how the weather conditions actually are, to make sure that it's safe for federal employees to travel in, or safe for the public to travel to federal locations. And then at that time, we'll make a recommendation. Now, one of the things we've found within the last 5 years is the use of telework, where most federal employees have access to either a laptop they can take home or the ability to work from home. So instead of actually closing down the government, we'll be proactive in the afternoon before an event, make sure we send out a suggestion of unscheduled leave or telework so they're able to then take their computer home and be able to work from home or decide to take the day off, if take leave for that day if they wish. So really the government never shuts down that time, but we want to make sure that we encourage, we get the message out early on, so we encourage that action to keep the government up. But there are times where if there's a state of emergency, we might have to close the government, or we may have an early dismissal or arrival in that. So that group will make that recommendation. We also have a communicator XT. That's our hotline number. If there is times of a weather emergency or terrorism emergency, we can contact all the federal agencies in the region to let them know what's going on. So again, going back to our COOP working group plan and our Kansas City Regional Interagency COOP exercise, which we had back in July 27th. And what that is, again, it's a full-scale exercise that we do on an annual basis to basically, and this time it worked on reconstitution of an agency. And what that basically means is that agency has had to COOP, and now they've been outside, have to COOP for greater than 6 weeks. Excuse me. So now, how do they basically move back into their original facility? So who do they work with? They work with GSA, they work with utilities. What do they have to do to kind of overcome that issue? So last year we had over 600 federal employees participate in 20 different agencies in the Kansas City area. Any questions on the first line of business? Yes, sir.
Gene Wilson, trustee of the Command Staff College. How do you interact with Mid-America Regional Council and their coordination of emergency preparedness in cities and counties throughout the region?
They're actually part of our communicator system. So if there is an emergency, we hear from them. They hear from us as far as what our recommendation is at that time. We've found that again, there's different communities are going to be a little bit more liberal as far as what they're going to do, and rightly so. They may have different issues as far as the abilities to clean streets or the terrain that they have to cover may cause issues. So they might be a little bit more cautious for their employees. But we take into account as far as that. One of the other things that we do is for our again when we do recommendations, we have a weather blog, if you will, so federal agency heads can go in and make a basically list as far as what they plan to do for that day. So if the colonel with the Corps of Engineers can see what the administrator for Social Security administrations do, and then they can decide on their own as far as what they want to do. We're just really making recommendations, whether they go with it or not. Our recommendations are usually, again, we want to make sure the government is open. Our chair of that committee feels that, you know, if the malls are open, the government should be open in some extent. But by the same means, we might want to make sure that we're not encouraging the population to come to us if there's business. So maybe business as usual for our employees, but maybe we close down to the public.
But in terms of interagency cooperation, do you have a participant that sits on their planning councils?
We do not. So that's something to think about. Thank you. Yes?
2 questions. The exercise is every year?
It is.
Okay. Second question, does the interagency cooperation include city agencies, like the police and civil responders, as far as some of the emergency exercise
We have involved them in past exercises, haven't we? It depends upon the exercise design. So in this design, and we vary that each year, in this design, it was more focused on not such the emergency happening today, like the great shakeout that they had last year. Obviously, that included federal, state, and local emergency managers working on it. In this exercise, we wouldn't really include them because what we did is we did a coup, and then 2 hours later in the exercise, we moved to, okay, now we're ready to move back. So we've had a coup exercise for 14 years now. So we've pretty much got down that day of, or the working into where we're going to move to 24 hours. Now we're trying to, every 3-4 years, we look at, okay, now we've couped, but now we got to get back into our location. So this exercise, in the case, it was actually past the emergency portion. It was actually, what do we do to actually move back into our permanent building?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So yes, we have had where we've had local police and other emergency units that have been part of the real life exercise, but it depends upon what the scenario is. So the scenario varies.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it may be a tornado or,
Right.
Right.
Like if the coup required you to move from your federal facility into a city facility or
Right.
something to that effect, where, that's how it's been arranged,
Right.
that, well, this whole block got exploded or whatever the deal is, and who's got space? The city's got space.
Right.
Or something like that. Okay.
So yes, I mean, we have actually, in every agency does have a coop site already set up, and there are some with alternate scoop sites in case it does happen to both locations. And we've done various exercises where it's taking out the whole federal building or several federal buildings at one time. So what can we do to work with that? And David, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that or.
Right. The COOP exercises are a little different than a lot of other emergency type exercises because they don't really deal with addressing the reason for why we COOP. It's irrelevant. I've often joked that the scenario we should have is like a Martian invasion that's causing us to COOP. It doesn't really matter why. So engagement with the city, they're more first responder focused than we are. We're mostly focused on, we need to be able to get to our alternate location, and some of it's nuts and bolts. Does our virtual private network work? Do we have orders of succession? Do the senior managers know where the COOP site is, and do they know how to get there? Does the agency that we have the MOU with have a full roster so that they'll let everybody in? But like Larry said, we've been doing this for so long that we've kind of gotten past the first 2 hours of setting up a continuity facility. And for this one here, we did a time jump 2 hours in that said, okay, now it's been 2 hours. So we've already been there. Now let's start talking about, the building manager says the building can be repaired in 3 months or in 6 weeks or whatever. I forget what the scenario was. How do we start planning to go back? Do we bring all 250 people back at one time, or do we phase it? And those plans have to be looked at.
Yes, sir.
Trustee, are you affected at all by the state line? In other words, the state line affects so much of
Right.
planning in this area, just wreaks havoc. Is that does that chain you too?
We are not in this process. No.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Staff Group 7 Delta, just in regards to how the FEB is formed and the structure, is there an agency in DC that has oversight of FEBs, or is it just like a presidential mandate that says federal organizations within this certain region will participate? And then so who has oversight of like the federal
Sure.
employees that actually participate?
The Office of Personnel Management is the oversight agency in DC for us. So they have a small group of 4 people to kind of work with the network. Locally, it is actually, for example, I'm an OPM employee, but I am funded by a series of dollars from Federal Highway and Federal Aviation Administration. I'm housed by General Services Administration. So in a sense, I'm a professional beggar. So I mean, wherever you can fit me. And that's the case. None of the FEBs are appropriated. So different departments of the government actually fund them. So in San Antonio, for example, DOD funds them. In Chicago, General Services Administration, Dallas, Health and Human Services. So each of the departments back in the 60s, they decided, okay, we will host this agency, fund this agency for for the tenure of it. So for the betterment of the entire federal population.
And so then the total population of FEBs countrywide has increased, right, since the 60s, or is it
No,
generally
actually,
stayed the same? It's-
back in probably 69 was the last time there's been new FEB. So it's been pretty constant. There are a couple locations that large locations that don't have FEBs. For example, San Diego, huge DOD population, but does not have a federal executive board. Same way with Phoenix. So there are some areas that would be looked at if there was actually strong funding that they could potentially add to federal executive boards. In other areas, for example, in Des Moines and Wichita, they have what they call a Federal Executive Association. So in that sense, the leaders of each of the field offices will get together on a quarterly basis, usually for lunch or breakfast, and talk about common needs that they might have. The biggest difference there is they don't have a staff person that works on their behalf. So, so we are kind of big brothers for them. So we kind of help them along if there's opportunities that we can share with them to help the field employees, because ultimately those offices report to our regional offices. So we want to make sure we allow them the same opportunities that are up here for our federal folks.
So in the last part of that, is there a lot of collaboration with FEBs at large countrywide? Like, if there's only limited staff, you guys work together to share best practices as well?
And most of the FEBs are either 1 or 2 person staff. So we'd be one of the larger ones with 2 people right now. That hasn't always been the case. But yes, we kind of split up the duties with these business lines, and we have working committees that focus on the different business lines to try to improve the network. So, for example, I'm the chair of the workforce the workforce development support. So, a group of 5 different FEBs, the executive directors will work on the goals that are focused on that area, and also see how we can enhance that program for the rest of the network. So there's a constant improvement program that's trying to work with the FEBs. We meet twice a year just to kind of to focus on new strategies or work on a strategic plan for the upcoming years. One of those is just with the directors, one with our leadership as well. So thanks. Okay. Our next line of business is the workforce development and support. And this really is where we have the cost savings for the taxpayers. Really what this does as an interagency program, we're able to allow trainings, local trainings that are common to all agencies, and bring them into the Kansas City area for a lower cost and eliminate the travel and the per diem costs of that. So within this area, we'll have various diversity. We have a committee that works on diversity issues. So the special emphasis months that you will find within the presidential directives, we will work on that, try to program early in the month and then share that with the other agencies, have the members go back and share that with their other agencies. We also, with this, we have Martin Luther King celebration, and again, that's a way to get folks together to celebrate the results that have come out of all of our impact throughout the year. And then a lot of community outreach comes from that area. Every other year we have a diversity day, a diversity training day. This is a great EEO opportunity for our federal employees to learn a little bit more about diversity, and also to again get them to share that information back with their member agencies. A lot of the work that again will go into a lot of things that a lot of our focus goes into those interagencies trainings. And a good example of savings would be the supervisory refresher training. Now, OPM suggests that every manager should have a refresher training every 3 years. So typically what happens is they would have to go to DC for that training. So we developed a local refresher training where they can come learn the basics, work on best practice skills, quality performance standards, and with that, usually we can get a trainer at a lot lower cost than someone in DC can, and then that eliminates the cost of the travel cost and the per diem cost that goes into that. So some of the best practices that we've had over this past year, you see supervisory refresher. We have a lot of trainings that focus towards the executive membership because, again, our members are those executive officers, and we want them to be able to build up that succession plan that we talked about. Again, we have a lot of officers who will be leaving in the next few years, so how do we grow the next group of federal executive members? So some of the trainings that we've offered, the Executive Corps Qualifications Training, which was a 7-month program focusing on the Executive Corps qualifications. We also offer opportunities for people to learn from each other. So, for example, we are going into our 4th cohort of the President Management Council's interagency rotation. And what that is individuals are able to take advantage of a 6-month detail, and work at another federal facility to kind of learn how they operate. So that's been a tremendous opportunity for the folks, especially if they're looking to move on up into the SES level. That's an opportunity for them to see other agencies and how to work within those confines. A lot of soft skill trainings have been done in the last few years. Writing good performance standards, dealing with difficult people, business writing. We also try to focus on the support folks with indispensable assistant training and crucial conversations. And then ongoing leadership programs, working with the 6 core competencies or think and act like a leader. So again, try to constantly develop our folks to grow within their corridor and encourage others to move on up into the ranks of the federal government. Likewise, we said that 50% of the federal population is eligible to retire in the next few years. We also provide pre-retirement programs for them. And in fact, I think this next June we'll be having a pre-retirement ceremony up here at Fort Leavenworth for civilians and military up here if they'd like to. But last year we had over 550 federal employees take advantage of that and kind of learn what benefits they have and how to take the most impact. But along with that, we also provide mid-career training or seminars or early career so they know exactly if they wish to move up in the government or they wish to be a little bit more financially secure, know what their benefits are and how to make them to maximize those benefits, as well as what are some next steps in your career you might look at. We are constantly looking for different opportunities and different programs to enrich our employees. One being this past 2 years we had a Federal Innovation Connection Showcase. What this is, we've basically asked for nominations of innovations from all the different federal agencies. And through that, we take the top 9 and we invite them to our showcase at the Truman Library in August. And at that time, they present their innovation. And last year was actually, one of our judges was the director of OPM, Beth Colbert, that actually was that did the judging on it. And it's really been a great effort and really a great way to recognize innovation within the agencies. I mean, there's always great ideas. A lot of times it fails to be recognized, but this is an opportunity for them to see it and also learn from each of the other agencies. Our first one actually in 2015, we had a web-based storage program similar to what Google Cloud does, but just for federal government employees that the USDA National Information Technology Center did. And from that, they've actually were able to, again, most people didn't know that, they were able to connect with 20 other federal agencies that needed that type of service. Another thing that we try to do is each year we have pathway students, or if we're lucky enough to have interns come in over the summertime, we offer intern enrichment program. With that, we offer either weekly tours or development opportunities for them to learn a little bit more about the government and encourage folks to make the federal government a career choice in the future. Another huge cost savings that the FEB offers is our alternative dispute resolution program. And what that is we have over 80 trained mediators that if an agency has a workplace conflict, they can have a unbiased party come in and basically mediate that program. So say, for example, in the Army here, we have an issue of a subordinates, or maybe two different supervisors or that can't work together, or a subordinate and a supervisor. And there's a great need to try to curtail that before it goes to EEO complaint, because if it gets to EEO complaint, it's going to be over $100,000 in resolution. With this, we were able to basically say, again, for that situation, we could maybe get a mediator from the Internal Revenue Service come in free of charge, try to mediate the issue, the workplace conflict, and find a resolution to that. We have over 65% success in that through our mediators. So within that success, all those successes last year basically added up to $1.6 million in savings to the government. So again, it's a great program, probably underutilized, but we like to, again, just like we are doing today, make sure that people are aware that it's available for their staff. Yes?
The alternative dispute resolution is a program in all of the FEBs, or this is specific to Kansas City and there's 80 mediators just in Kansas City?
There are 80 mediators just in Kansas City. 22 out of the 28 FEBs have the alternative dispute resolution. So not every FEB has one. That is part of my job, is to try to encourage them to have one as the chair of this committee, but we're still working on that. Again, that's probably the biggest cost savings component that we have, because each mediation, if it's successful, it really adds up to about $80,000 per mediation, every successful mediation.
Okay.
And the last thing is response to recruitment and retention. Again, we're trying to recruit the new members to the federal government. We do that with our Human Resource Committee. The Chico messages that come out from DC, trying to share that information. Hiring fairs, hiring excellence campaign, opportunities for employees to continue to grow themselves as well. We've worked, excuse me, we've negotiated discounts with the University of Kansas as well as Park University. So if people want to continue their education, to grow within their work location, that they're able to. And lastly, we also try to recognize our federal employees. The first week we like to make sure that we like to see that it happens every day, but the first full week in May is Public Employees Recognition Week. We focus on a recognition day, an awards day. Last year was May 3rd. We do these awards with the City of Kansas City, the County of Jackson County, and of course the federal government, and in the Little Theater in Bartle Hall, and we recognize individuals out of 11 categories. So with that, we have over 300 people participate, and we're able to hand out numerous awards and various certificates. So whoever is nominated always gets some type of recognition, or the top nominee gets a nice little plaque that you see on the bottom there. Excuse me. And I think we kind of covered all these with the interagency rotation program and the public outreach. So any questions on the workforce development and support?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the FEB the one that does the retirement for the federal employees? You do the seminars for them that
We
you
do,
can
yes.
go to? Okay. Is that required for a new employee to attend that? One
Yes.
of the things we found that it is
It is not
required.
required, no.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
Because my husband and I attended the last one that you had,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of information there, but it would have been more helpful to have it in the beginning
Well,
than at the end.
y-
I mean,
you're
a lot of
absolute-
it when you're talking about
that is the number one.
FERS and everything else that was involved with it, that was the one thing we walked out of going, this would have been great information to a new employee who's coming into the federal government to work that wasn't available. At the end, it's kind of immaterial.
Yeah, that's the number one comment we get out of those surveys is I wish I would have done this a long time ago. In that case, we do offer, every other year we offer an early career seminar, which just like the pre-retirement covers those benefits as well as other. A lot of times people come into the government and they really have no idea what their benefits are. I mean, they have their first day is they go through all the paperwork and all the benefits and they're signing their name. They really don't know what they're signing of. And again, it helps for them to attend that. You can't make it mandatory. OPM suggests that a federal employee is touched at least 3 times during their work career. So what we do try to do is we offer early career, we offer a mid-career, and then the pre-retirement, so they can know exactly the best practices of making the most of their benefit program and the most of their career. They will. It's really up to the agencies to send their employees, if they will, or the individual to actually participate. So. Yeah.
Requirement, because I think the information would be
Right.
invaluable to them.
Good.
It's just
And I hope you enjoyed the pre-retirement.
Yeah, it was
program.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, we're at the end of that, so it really didn't, and he's retired military first, so it didn't make that much difference to us. But I would imagine if you were a career employee and you didn't have some of that information in the beginning,
Sure,
a lot of it with their finances and stuff would have been beneficial to know in the beginning.
sure. I agree. Okay. Our last line of business is the intergovernmental and interagency collaboration and community outreach. And what that really involves is really getting the federal agencies together. And the best way we do that is every month we have a full FEB board meeting. So we invite all the FEB agency heads to come to a neutral location to learn about best practices that they're doing, to share the missions that they have and what their needs may be. We usually have some type of joint programming that may be beneficial for them that time, and also report outs from the different departments. So it's a way to get the agencies together and really kind of network at that time to learn how they can help each other. Under this also has involved anything that's really philanthropic for the federal government employees. The Combined Federal Campaign, I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. So last year we raised close to $3 million in that campaign. So again, we organize that, and we have staff that works on that as well. Also, again, opportunities for giving a little bit of your time. Day of Caring has been around for 24 years, and that is a program that we go out in one single day in June and work. Last year we had over 600 employees working on 28 different projects and over 3,000 man hours that day. Also in this area, we have lots of committees that kind of help focus on different needs that are out there in the communities, kind of community solutions, if you will. So our Regional Wellness Council works year-round to try to have a healthy environment for our employees in their workplace. So right now, our biggest thing is we're working on the Maintain, Don't Gain program. So what that is it's said that the average person gains 5 pounds between Thanksgiving and the end of the year. So how can you maintain your weight during that time period? And it gives good examples as far as what you can do instead of putting on that pounds, how you can keep that off. We also focus on small business networking, trying to get the contracts for the small business with the governments, giving them the opportunities for those small businesses. Many of you that are in the contracting, you know that the government is required to utilize a certain amount of small business for contracting opportunities, but a lot of times they don't know where to go. So we're giving them opportunities to really network with the federal contract officers. A new one for us is our Sustainability Committee. That was a presidential directive from last December by President Obama to make the government the leader in sustainability within the next over the next decade. So how can we do a better job of being green, recycling, leaving really less footprint in the government over the next 10 years, and kind of use that example of towards the corporate side as well. We work closely. We have a Veteran Affairs Committee that works closely with our veterans that are currently employed or ones that are looking for employment, and how we can help serve them. So a lot of that we come together as an interagency committee once a month to look at what programs are going on. Part of that also includes the Heart America Stand Down, which some of you may be familiar with, where they work with the homeless veterans in a time frame in June and then also November to help them kind of a one-stop shopping, if you will. So if you have a homeless veteran they come in, they can get food, they can get clothing. If they have maybe they have some legal issue, they have a magistrate judge there that they can get that taken care of. Social Security, Health and Human Service there. So again, one way for them to be serviced all at one time. We also look for opportunities and networking opportunities for throughout our young staff coming in through Young Government Leaders. So that's a program that we started as a nationwide program, but we developed in the Kansas City area. And you see a lot of volunteer opportunities that we continue on with the Toys for Tots campaign that's just wrapping up, Harvesters Food Drives, the Feds Feeds Families programs and such. So you can learn more about the FEB by going to kansascity.feb.gov, or if you find yourself being transferred to another location across the country and to see if there is a FEB there, you can just go to feb.gov and to the national website, and that will direct you to your local FEB and learn a little bit more at that time. So that I will just really kind of open up for questions. I'm pretty much open book. Really, when it gets down to it, I work for you guys. Whatever your mission and whatever you're looking to do for your agency, I'm there to kind of help enhance it as much as possible. A lot of my job is just really making contacts, just pairing people up with the right contact with the right person. Yes, sir.
Bill Eckhart from the foundation. Can you talk a little bit about Kansas City? I'm intrigued by your map that had, 38,000 employees, I
Right.
think. Comparing to other cities, you talked about regional. I was astonished at the figure 150 agencies in Kansas City. That just sort of blows my mind. I had no idea.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about, I've always said publicly, and then maybe the best way to ask the question is to challenge it. I've always said that Kansas City was one of the 10 governing cities in the United States, and it offered unique opportunities and challenges because of that. So if that basic premise is accurate, how is that different from other cities? Is there some way to look at the federal imprint on Kansas City differently let's say differently from Denver, or differently from St. Louis, or differently from Chicago? What can you tell us about that's unique about Kansas City and the federal government would be the way I would formulate the question.
Sure. Kansas City, first of all, it is the largest employer in the Kansas City area, the federal government is. Yeah. And that 38,000 does include, of course, Leavenworth, which the federal government would be the largest employer, certainly, but in Leavenworth as well. So that's where we kind of get the numbers from. What we don't count in that number is this is just really people that are receiving full federal salary or salaries from the government. Does not include the contractors. So you could add on another 10% easily for contractors. So we know that there's at least 4,000 more contractors that come off that as well. The benefit of the salary and the benefit of the impact of the government here equates to about $3 billion to the Kansas City area each year. So that's really kind of the impact of the government being here in the Kansas City area. That's what it's equating to. How does it help compared to Denver or such? Denver is actually, I think, is fairly smaller. But it's also a little bit different clientele. While there are regional cities in some aspect, they're a lot more DoD. They have, of course, they count in the Denver. It's actually Colorado FEB, so they count in all the Colorado Springs bases, and then of course the Carson and such like that. So they're going to have more of a DoD aspect. So we're here in the Kansas City area. Why DoD is still our largest employer, we do focus more on civilian sector. We've learned a long time ago. We're in a great situation that we have a tremendous gym here as far as Fort Leavenworth with the training resources that are available, and then really the location that we are in the nation, that we can really expand our services to the entire nation because of that. So one of the things that we're working on is with partnerships with the Army Management Staff College. We're also working on, we have a new program coming out with KU in February and June, which is a SES training for members. We're hoping to get people coming across the nation into the Kansas City area to be educated, and we hope to expand that with, again, not only the Command General Staff College, but the Army Management Staff College, as well as other local entities. So we're looking for ways that we can enhance that program. If you look at if you ask some of the hotels, or if you ask KCI Airport, if you really want to find out should we get a new airport, ask the federal government, because they're the ones that are actually using it most, especially with the DoD. As many people that we have come in and out of Fort Leavenworth, they could really tell you as far as if we need a new airport and what the services are needed in the Kansas City area.
Thank you. Got time for one last question.
Yes, sir.
Sir Carl Schreier, Staff Group 7 Delta. You mentioned early on with the 28 locations that the Office of Personnel Management really hasn't adjusted that, I believe, since 1969.
Right.
But then you talked about some other cities like San Diego as having a large base of federal
Right.
employees. Has the Office of Personnel Management looked at potentially reducing some of the existing federal executive boards and opening new ones, in growing parts of the country?
They have.
Okay.
That's probably all I should. One of the biggest issues, there is a funding issue in a lot of the areas, including the Kansas City area. These are agreements that were made by different departments years ago to fund these organizations, and with the downsizing government and the cutbacks, a lot of the agencies that had previously said yes, we'll fund this organization, they don't see that as their mission, so they're pulling back funding. So there's actually some locations. Take for example, New York City is without a FEB right now because their funding source, their funding agency, is withdrawn. So they're trying to basically shore up the FEBs that they already have chartered. Because one thing that they have to do, that has to go through the Federal Register, and that has to get congressional approval to add those items as well. So they've got other obstacles to jump over. But they're hoping, if they're looking at ways to actually make it a funded or appropriated dollars, if you will, and with that they would be allowed to add on other cities as they deem fit.
Finish up, Gene. Good.
We're about to go through a change of politics in the White House. And how will that affect the membership on your Kansas City board? And what do you do to transition the new people who are coming in?
Sure.
In 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Well, currently we have 14 political appointees that sit on our board. So close to 10% of our membership are political appointees that will be leaving, retiring. We are very fortunate to have a strong career staff that falls behind them, and career members that have been through this process in the past. We have been very lucky to serve with some political appointees that had a lot of foresight and very, very good at their job. And the one thing I've learned in the past is, you may have the perfect person working the job, and you think they're never replaceable. They're replaceable. There's always other talents they bring in. And I've been asked this question more as far as from newspapers and stuff like that. So, is there a fear of the transition? Not really. I mean, there's apprehension, but there's also excitement. There's an opportunity whenever this type of transition happens. But again, the agencies have to keep the course of their mission, make sure that they focus on that, and then whatever changes come to that mission, that's it will be what it'll be. But we'll be fine with that. But yeah, we're going to lose a lot of folks. We generally, when they come in, and it's usually one at a time, and it takes about 6 months for folks to get that appointment. So we'll meet with them individually, or we'll have one of our executive members meet with them to kind of let them know that we're out there, and again, that we're working on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very
Hopefully,
much. Hey, thank you.
This has been educational for you as far as now you're aware of that there are federal executive boards here in Kansas City area as well as across the country. So thanks for coming. On the table in front of you for our next speakers, that'll be on 26 January. We'll have the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency folks come and talk to us, as well as through the room is our Interagency Journal. There's a copy of those available for you. Once again, thanks for coming. January 26th, presentation will be right here in this room, same time, 12:30, Arnold Conference Room. Hope to see you then. Thank you.